In the fight to contain Ebola, health workers complete vaccinations and are now focused on community outreach in the Democratic Republic of Congo. U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un shake hands and agree to denuclearize the Korean peninsula. And a ship carrying over 600 African migrants now has a destination. But can the vessel make the 1,400-kilometer-long journey to Spain? Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Well, the Democratic Republic of Congo is battling the most serious Ebola outbreak since the devastating 2014 epidemic in West Africa. The country's Ministry of Health says Congo's current outbreak has killed 14 people. Overall, there have been 38 confirmed infections. Joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu with the latest information on the Ebola outbreak. Lino.
Thank you, Vincent. Well, the United Nations agencies are stepping up their effort to contain the Ebola crisis in the Democratic Republic of Congo through community mobilization following a new confirmed case on last Thursday. Health workers have moved quickly to halt the spread of the virus by vaccinating everybody who has had contact with Ebola patients and everybody who has had contact with those primary contacts. Since the start of the latest outbreak in the country, UNICEF and its partners have reached more than 400,000 people with life-saving information about how to avoid contracting the deadly virus as part of an ongoing awareness campaign in the affected areas. Community outreach workers go from school to school and community to community, raising awareness.
There is an impact that we cannot neglect. There has been a reduction in cases, and we also see that people are taking our advice. When we go into houses or households, we see people who are following our basic principles. There are hand-washing units. They are doing what we are telling them. There is also less hand-to-hand greetings.
And the World Health Organization says it is committing $15.6 million over the next 9 months to helping the 9 countries that border Congo to ramp up their emergency response capabilities. Now, International Albinism Awareness Day is June 13th, a day set aside by the United Nations to celebrate the human rights of people with albinism. Albinism is a congenital disorder characterized by the complete or partial absence of pigment in the skin, hair, and eyes. Medical experts say people with albinism are prone to skin problems like cancer, and albinism also affects the eyes and causes low vision. In some societies around the world, persons with albinism suffer from marginalization and social exclusion due to their physical appearance. In some African countries, many of them, especially children, have been the victims of brutal attacks and murder, often because of witchcraft and superstition. Observers say more needs to be done to ensure the wellness and well-being of people with albinism in Africa. And joining us in the studio for more is Kumba Makalu. She's founder and executive director of the Salif Keita Global Foundation, an organization founded by world-renowned Malian singer Salif Keita and dedicated to ending the worldwide discrimination, persecution, and genocide against persons with albinism. Kumba, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Leonard.
It is so good to have you listen. So tomorrow, well, June 13th, as I mentioned, is a special day set aside to really talk about albinism and shed a light on the plight of people with albinism. Tell us why it is so important to bring this issue forward.
Very good question. Albinism is a very rare disease. Actually, it's not even really a disease, it's a disorder. And unfortunately, because of the stigmas in Africa and other places regarding the appearance of people with albinism, they are targeted for ritual crimes, they are stigmatized, they are discriminated against, and they don't have a voice really to defend them. And this day that has been enacted by the UN really shows and tells the world that people with albinism matter.
Then they matter indeed, because a lot of the rhetoric that we hear around the condition is the fact that people are different, their skin is very, very light, but there is so much more to this. It's not just about the way they look. There are also medical aspects to their condition, social aspects to the condition that really put them, turn them into victims in some societies. So recently in Mali, for example, a five-year-old girl was beheaded. She was found beheaded. This is really, really terrible, but unfortunately, it's not a situation that is isolated. Tell us more about that.
Okay. There have been over 600 documented cases of albino ritual crimes and murders throughout the African continent over the last 10 years. So, and these are the documented cases. There are many more that have gone undocumented. In places like Mali, now people are starting to speak out and going to the authorities, but it's been something happening, but that's always been hidden and basically, I don't want to say accepted, but actually not regarded as something very important because of the ritual and spiritual aspects attached to it.
And it's so critical because they are not just killed just because they have albinism. And you talk about ritual and spiritual belief. Tell us about some of these beliefs that really are driving people to really commit these horrendous crimes.
Right. Actually, we're tackling those beliefs right now because we understand that it's a matter of a belief system that has been in place for centuries, and it's a false belief system in the occult. And the idea that people with albinism could be not human, but ghost or the product of a curse or the product of anything occult related, and that their body parts would help someone gain power or have access to wealth. So these beliefs are ingrained in societies that we find all throughout the African continent. And you know, the old adage is the devil is a liar. Yes, the devil is absolutely a liar because these people are human beings just like you and me.
Absolutely.
They have albinism, but albinism should be seen actually more as a trait, you know, like being tall or you know, or short or anything like that. You receive it from both parents, and it could be recessive or dominant in your parents, and you may have it or you may not have it, but it's a protein that affects the melanin production in your skin, and there's a simple scientific explanation for it. And unfortunately, because of the lack of education and information in these societies, the occult belief system prevails.
So how is the Salif Keita Global Foundation addressing these issues? And Salif Keita, a well-known singer, also an albino. What is being done through your organization to ensure the safety and well-being of the children and adults?
Right. So we work both on the African continent, especially in Mali, and here in the United States. Our main goal is to raise the awareness. Salif is a well-known artist. He does have albinism. Some people do not realize, actually, around the world that he has albinism. They just think he's just a light-skinned black person, which we've heard many times. But he has made it a point to raise this awareness wherever he goes. And we've done many tours through his concerts. We've raised money. We've explained to people what's been going on. And I could say we're the largest organization raising awareness around the world about the plight of people with albinism in Africa. And, you know, so that's one aspect. In Mali, on the ground, where there's a problem with skin cancer because we know how hot the temperatures on the African continent can be, especially in places like Mali. we have a lot of cases of skin cancer, unfortunately. And people with albinism, they come and they need treatment.
So you provide sunscreen and other?
Yes, and we even do evacuations, because by the time they get to us, most of the time, it's when it's last resort. Okay. Because they've tried traditional medicines, they've tried, it'll go away, they'll try anything. But when they see, well, this is not going away, yes, they look for help, and they come to us, and we try to help them as much as we can. So here also in the U.S. we do advocacy. We're actually working now also to bring international attention to what's been happening in Mali, and we have partner organizations that will be coming to Mali, and hopefully things will change very soon. We
really hope for the best, and we have to live there. Thank you so much, Kumba, for joining us.
Thank you, Always a pleasure.
Sure. And that's Kumba Makalu. She's founder and executive director of the Salif Keita Global Foundation. And that's our health report for today. That's it. For more on today's topic, follow me on Twitter if you would like to have more information. Back to you, Vincent.
Well, Leno, thank you very much. And be sure to watch Leno Madu's health reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered during the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. You're watching Africa 54. In a moment, we'll have the latest on the nuclear summit live from Singapore. But first, here's a look at Tuesday's headlines.
La formation de ce gouvernement répond également à votre travail et je vous en
Haydi.
Well, with the eyes of the world watching the nuclear summit in Singapore between U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un appears to have been a success. President Trump says North Korea is prepared to give up its nuclear arsenal very quickly. He made the comments after meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. But as viewers Bill Gallo reports, the president's comments go farther than what was actually agreed to in the written document signed by both leaders.
It was a handshake that made history. But how much progress Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un made beyond that interaction isn't clear. The joint statement signed by the two men was light on specifics. North Korea reaffirmed its commitment to, quote, work towards the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
We're starting that process very quickly, very, very quickly. Absolutely.
In return, Trump offered unspecified security guarantees. The two men vowed a new era of U.S.-North Korea relations. Afterwards, Trump was very optimistic.
My meeting with Chairman Kim was honest, direct, and productive. We got to know each other well in a very confined period of time.
Trump also announced the U.S. will freeze its military exercises with South Korea, which he said were expensive, provocative, and inappropriate.
We will be stopping the war games, which will save us a tremendous amount of money, unless and until we see that the future negotiation is not going along like it should.
The personal warmth between the two men was unmistakable. Trump told VOA contributor Greta Van Susteren that he enjoyed his interaction with Kim.
Really, he's got a great personality. He's a, funny guy. He's a very smart guy. He's a great negotiator. He loves his people, not that I'm surprised by that, but he loves his people, and I think that we have the start of an amazing deal. We're going to de-nuke North Korea.
Trump also told VOA that he brought up human rights with Kim. Much now depends on Kim, who said very little publicly during the summit.
The old prejudices and practices worked as obstacles on our way forward, but we overcame all of them, and we are here today.
Trump says the next step is talks next week, led by Secretary of State Mike Pompeo.
Well, President Trump spoke with VOA contributor Greta Van Susteren after his summit talks with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Singapore about what the two discussed and what to expect next.
Nice to see you, Mr. President.
Nice to see you, Greta.
Surprised to see you here all the way in Singapore.
Well, it was a good place, and you're the only one I've done an outdoor interview, and it's about 130 degrees, but that's okay.
I think it's about 150, but
yeah,
anyway.
It's pretty hot.
What surprised you today about Kim Jong-un?
Really, he's got a great personality. He's a, funny guy. He's a very smart guy. He's a great negotiator. He loves his people, not that I'm surprised by that, but he loves his people, and I think that we have the start of an amazing deal. We're going to de-nuke North Korea. It's going to start immediately, and a lot of other things are happening, including getting the remains back. I know you've been so involved in so many ways in North Korea, but getting the remains back, Greta, is so important to so many people. They've called me, they've written me letters, please, can you do it? And he's agreed to do that. Thousands of people. So, who died in the war. So that's a big deal.
So you put the human rights issue on the table today, and he reacted how?
Very well. I mean, we obviously were talking about the denuclearization 90% of the time, but we put a lot of other things, including human rights were mentioned. Getting the remains back were a big factor. In fact, we put it in the document. We're able to get that in the document. We got a lot of good things in that document. That was far beyond what anyone thought was going to happen.
Give me some sort of behind the scenes. Did you issue an ultimatum to him? Did he issue an ultimatum to you?
No,
what was the reaction, the back and forth?
Not an ultimatum. We've been dealing for 3 months, really, and we've been dealing through our various representatives, including Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who's done a really fantastic job. So we've been dealing for a pretty good period of time, and when we met today, we got along right from the beginning. For me, this is hour number 25. I haven't been sleeping for 25 hours. It's been a big, long negotiation, and I'm very proud of it. It starts a process, that could have ended up in a war, that could have ended up with many millions of people. You know North Korea very well. Seoul has 28 million people. That could have ended up with millions of people dead, and we're going to end up with a deal.
All right, what about our troops? Are they staying in South Korea?
Yeah, they're going to stay. We didn't even discuss that. That wasn't discussed. We are going to get out of the war games that cost so much money, because I think, number one, it's very provocative, and I want to do it, and I think they're very happy about it because it is so provocative, but it costs a fortune to do it. And we won't do that as long as we're negotiating in good faith.
What brought him to the table this time? Because there's been a lot of saber rattling back and forth over decades with the DPRK in the U.S.
Well, actually, I don't think there's been too much saber rattling prior to me. I don't think they basically had a silencio attitude, silence. They didn't want to talk about it, and you can't do that. And I think the initial rhetoric was very important, frankly, as much as I hated to do it and as much as some people thought I was doing the wrong thing. I think without that, we wouldn't be here. I also think that he really wants to make a deal. He wants to do something. Because he knows that we mean business. I don't think he felt that in the past. I think in the past it was different people. It didn't work out. But he knows that we want to do business. We have to do business, and we will do business. And now we do have, it's been, not a long time, but although you could say that from day one we've been talking about North Korea, and in a very tough manner. But I think we signed a document today which was far greater and more comprehensive than people thought. Nobody thought this was possible.
What do you think he thought of you after he left?
I think he liked me, and I like him, and I understand the past, and nobody has to tell me he's a rough guy. He has to be a rough guy, or he has been a rough person, but we got along very well. He's smart, loves his people, he loves his country, he wants a lot of good things, and that's why he's doing this.
But he's starved them, he's been brutal to them, he still loves his people?
Look, he's doing what he's seen done. I mean, if you look at it, but I really have to go by today and by yesterday and by a couple of weeks ago, because that's really when this whole thing started. Again, without the rhetoric and without the sanctions were very important. The sanctions are going to remain on until such time as we see, this is going to happen. And we pretty much see that now, but the sanctions will remain on until we really start dismantling or dismantle the nuclear weapons.
Because this is Voice America, it will be heard in North Korea by the citizens of DPRK of North Korea. What do you want to say directly to the citizens of North Korea?
Well, I think you have somebody that has a great feeling for them. He wants to do right by them, and we got along really well. We had a great chemistry. You understand how I feel about chemistry. It's very important. I mean, I know people where there is no chemistry. No matter what you do, you just don't have it. We had it right from the beginning. I talked about that, and I think great things are going to happen for North Korea.
Mr. President, nice to see you all the way from Washington.
That's true. It's been a long time. At some point, I'll be able to go to sleep, I think, get a little rest.
Indeed. Have a safe trip back, sir. Thank you, sir.
It's a great honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, now, Spain has announced on Monday that it will allow a ship carrying 629 migrants to dock in its port of Valencia. The rescue ship Aquarius has been in international waters now since picking up the migrants from a smuggler's vessel off the coast of Libya. Both Malta and Italy refused to let it dock in its port, saying they cannot cope with the migrants and refugees already on their soil. And it's unclear whether the rescue ship can make the 1,400 kilometers long journey to Valencia. Here's VOA's Zlatica Hoke.
The overcrowded ship has been floating in the Mediterranean Sea since Saturday. Aid workers said Monday they had enough food and water for a few days, but not enough space.
We have food and water enough to keep these people 2 to 3 days. But yeah, this is not what we wish, because it's overcrowded. People are sleeping in the deck. It is not comfortable at all. They are weak, tired, exhausted.
The Spanish government responded after both the European Union and the United Nations Refugee Agency appealed to the Mediterranean countries to allow disembarkation until the migrants' final destination is determined.
Let's remember that there are more than 123 children on the ship. There are reportedly people with very severe burns, people who are victims of torture and abuse.
The latest migrant crisis occurs as the southern European countries get overwhelmed by unending waves of migrants smuggled into the sea from the North African shores. Docking in Spain is only a temporary solution.
I don't think the problem is Italy's or Spain's. It's not Greece's problem. The problem is Europe's. The decision needs to be put on the table of the European Council in a determined and strong manner with a sense of solidarity, meaning that we all can't look away while the problem is being resolved by whoever has it closer.
More than 600,000 migrants have reached Italy by boat in the past 5 years, and its new government is refusing to take in more.
Abbiamo chiesto un gesto di solidarietà da parte dell'Europa.
We asked Europe to share the burden of the migration emergency and not to leave us alone, as has happened over the past few years. This gesture goes in this direction, therefore I can't do anything else than thank the Spanish authorities who have accepted our invitation.
The European Union policy known as the Dublin Regulation stipulates that migrants seeking asylum in Europe must apply for it in the EU country where they first arrived. The regulation has put a heavy burden on Mediterranean nations such as Greece, Italy and Malta that are closest to the northern African shores. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
And I want to go back to the summit between President Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un of North Korea. Let's go to Singapore now, where VOA correspondent Bill Gallo is standing by. Hello, Bill.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine. Now, the president said that these talks were way more than what anybody anticipated. What made them that kind of unique and achieve what the president says more than what was expected?
Well, these were very cordial discussions today between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un, but it's not exactly clear what was accomplished. I think we'll tell in the days to come. Trump's comments afterwards were much more optimistic and, in fact, much more detailed than what the joint communique detailed. It was not much. It was a shorter joint statement than had been expected. Nonetheless, Donald Trump was using big words afterwards. He said that that Kim Jong-un would very quickly give up his nuclear weapons, and of course, that wasn't in the joint communique.
Have we heard anything from the North Koreans regarding what really transpired?
We've heard very little from North Korea. In fact, the whole time Kim Jong-un was here in Singapore, he's now left, he didn't say much at all. What he did say was pleasantries. He said that there are, shackles that have prevented the U.S. and North Korea from actually being able to get along. He, expressed gratitude and appreciation that this meeting happened, but no details, really. And that's a crucial point. We have not heard a very clear commitment to give up his nuclear weapons.
And in fact, that is the crux of the matter. That is North Korea really likely to give up its nuclear weapons, like very quickly, as the president said?
Well, let's be clear. These were the president's words. These were not Kim Jong-un's words. These were Donald Trump's words that he would give up his weapons very quickly. So there's no evidence that that is going to happen, but I think also Donald Trump was trying to lay this out as sort of a framework for future talks, that some of the hard work is to be done ahead. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is actually leading a U.S. delegation to talk to North Korea next week, and perhaps we'll find out more then about some of the nuts and bolts, some of the details of a possible agreement.
Well, can we safely say there's a rapport at least that has been created here?
Yes, there's definitely some goodwill. And, there's a lot of skepticism about what was accomplished here, but I think one concrete thing you can take away is that Donald Trump is no longer talking about totally destroying North Korea, and he's not using, little rocket man to describe Kim Jong-un. That's a clear takeaway from all this.
Well, Bill, thank you very much. You have much more to do. Thanks for joining us. That's VOA's Bill Gallo reporting live from Singapore. And that's our show. Have a good night. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Lots of items are made from gold, like jewelry, coins, and medals.
Golden opportunity.
This sounds like a strange thing to be made of gold.
Jonathan, are you as excited as I am about the holiday next week?
I might be more excited. The holiday is a golden opportunity for me to catch up